Good morning and welcome to Church at Home with Rachael. It is Monday, the 16th of May. Yeah, it's the 16th of May. Time is really flying by. I don't know about you, but I love to read, and I love to read all kinds of things. And but I'm slow to take advice from people. Like, I don't know whether it's because I'm stubborn or what, or whether I just have too many other books to read. But for the last couple of years, I've been hearing an awful lot about this author her name is Rachael Held Evans. And unfortunately, she died very young and only produced a few books and left a husband and kids behind. But she is considered to be a pretty solid theologian in the world of church, especially among Anglicans, who are invited and expected to use reason in the way we think about God and church and things like that. If you don't know, the Anglican Church, they talk about a three-legged stool, like an old milking stool, meaning scripture, tradition, and reason. So scripture, of course, is the Bible. Tradition isn't sort of the whole Anglican, well, we did it twice, so it's a tradition. Tradition is what does the history of the church tell us? What have we done before? What have we always done? What is as a community what we have done? But also reason. What do we think about this? What do we understand about this? Does it make sense? We're supposed to, in the Anglican Church, you do not check your brain at the door. You are very much invited and expected to bring your questions and your doubts and your wonderings and your ideas to the table, and where we can sort them out and figure them out with each other. And so Rachael Held Evans is one of those folks that quite a few Anglican priests and lay people who really who read things like this are really getting into. And as I said, I'm late to the party. So I've recently picked up this book, A Wholehearted Faith, and it was compiled after she died, and was the parts that she hadn't yet completed were written by her friend Jeff Chu, who knew her very well and worked with her. So good solid sense that this is what she would have intended. But she has this incredible, she's talking about an altar in the church in Nob Hill in San Francisco. And the church is the Grace Cathedral. It's an Episcopal or Anglican church. And the altar is hewn out of granite from the Sierra Nevada and Redwood, California redwood from Northern California. And so she's done a bit of research about this to find out about this redwood tree that this altar was made out of. And it turns out that when she researched it, she discovered that redwood trees can live upwards of 2,000 years. And so some of the very redwood trees that are in California and other places were actually, as she says, baby saplings when Jesus walked the earth. That's kind of humbling to think that there's something that is still alive and growing in our world today that was around when Jesus was here on earth. Pretty cool. But what I find is even more cool is what she discovered about the way these redwoods live. They grow really, really, really tall and like massive trunks. And of course, if you're 2,000 years old, how like your trunk is going to be huge. But they grow so tall that there's actually a whole ecosystem at the top of the trees, where the rain and the fog create an atmosphere where moss can grow in the treetops. And there's animals that actually grow up there, and insects and things that normally you would expect would just be down on the ground. And so these trees the way they grow actually have a whole ecosystem up high in the sky, hundreds of feet in the air. That is pretty wicked. I never even thought of that. We think of the birds and the trees, the nests, and the little insects that get into the trees. But I never thought about actual animals or other vegetation growing in the treetops and from branch to branch as they come together. Well, not only do those trees come together with their foliage and everything up above, but down below, you think about trees, and I know probably most of you are a little bit more known more about arborology or whatever you call it than I do, but I would think if somebody said to me, the roots run deep, I think in terms of a big tree and its roots going straight down into the ground and, holding it up and everything. And actually, that doesn't make a lot of sense, because if something is like this, it's easy enough to push it over. But its foundation is spread out like this, then the tilting is not going to be much. So you get some pretty gale force winds, and a tree whose roots would go straight down in the ground might likely upend itself. But a tree whose roots spread out, and then, which is what the redwoods do, they intermingle, like the roots intermingle with the other trees around them, and they lock in together, and there's a lattice work. There's a network that provides strength, and that's how these trees have lived through gale force winds, and how they survive in difficult times, because they are interconnected and they support each other. And something else that she said was very interesting to me is that when a tree is taken down, or something happens, a forest fire, or something happens, that the other trees and the remainder of the roots of that tree will send up saplings, and will grow up in a ring around where that other tree used to be, almost like it's hallowed ground, like there's a remembrance of that tree. And I find that really, really a powerful image, because that, I think, is where sometimes we get a little bit messed up in our faith. I absolutely 100% believe that in order for me to be a Christian, I need to have a strong rooted faith. And I think that part of that faith does need to go deep. It needs to be mine. It needs to be something that I have used scripture, tradition, and reason to anchor me, to think things through, not just to say, well, my Sunday school teacher taught me that, so it must be true, and I'm never going to think about it again. I need my own sort of, my root ball to be settled below me in such a way that I can stand tall. But it's not enough for me to simply have my roots on my own. My roots need to be absolutely interconnected with a community. And that's where I get so frustrated, when people say, well, I don't need to go to church. I go golfing on Sunday morning, and I worship God on the golf greens, and I say prayers. And sometimes I think, well, what prayers are you saying? Is it a cuss word? What kind of prayers are you saying to God when you miss your putt? And I absolutely believe that, yes, God can be worshipped out in nature, and a golf course is a gentle, beautiful, well-maintained place where God's miracles are everywhere. Absolutely. Yes, indeed, you can worship on a golf course or out on your boat fishing in the middle of the lake. Absolutely. But, and this is a big but, we aren't called to be individual Christians by ourselves. It's not okay to be a Christ follower if it's you, yourself, and you, like me, myself, and I. I need a community. We all need a community of people who challenge us, who encourage us, that, that those roots, like that redwood tree, that those roots that go out, that when that redwood tree might be threatened, the other roots hold on to it and give it strength. And when that redwood tree is no longer, they pay homage to it, they memorialize it, and they help the new saplings to grow in its place. As Christians, as members of faith community, we need a community, because we need people to support us. We need to know, well, there's Dude. We need people around us who will encourage us and allow us to grow and to change and to make mistakes and to say absolutely wildly, like, what the heck did she just say? And then bring us back and say, okay, talk that out. Like, did you really mean that? Do you really believe that? A little bit heretical? Or, oh, I never thought of that before. To encourage us in our growth and our understanding, because I do believe that God continues to teach us that just because it was written in the Bible, 2, 6, 8,000 years ago, doesn't mean that God isn't still speaking to us today. But we need community to be able to bounce those ideas off of, to listen and to hear those ideas from other people. We need to be in community. We need our roots, not just to go deep, but we maybe even more so need them, absolutely more so, need them to spread out and then become both a support to other people, but also to provide support to us. So I really did appreciate her image of this redwood tree and the forest of redwoods. It is, sometimes I find that for me, the most spiritual and uplifting images are images of nature, God's creation. So just a thought, if you're interested in reading this book, you can order it on Amazon or wherever you get your books. It's called Wholehearted Faith by Rachael Held Evans with Jeff Chu. And I think this is the fourth book that she authored. I hope that you have an incredible day. I hope that you are able to both recognize the strength of your own being where you are, but also the strength of the people and the community that you have around you. And if you are struggling because you don't have a community, and you're a praying person, pray that you will find a group of people who will understand you, accept you as you are, and both encourage you to grow, but also allow you to encourage them to grow as well. I really do think we need community around us. And I appreciate you, my YouTube community. Each and every one of you mean a great deal to me, and I appreciate who you are. And I offer prayers for each of you en masse, my YouTube family every day. Have a great day. God bless you, and I will see you again tomorrow, Tuesday, for Church at Home with Rachael.